and early movers in the manufacturing of the chargers, they have stayed away from the government procurement. Why? Because you are going for a least cost product. You are not caring for the quality. वो चार्जर्स अप टाइम कितने देर रहेंगे? तो अगर आपको सिर्फ टिक बॉक्स लगाना है तो आप खर्च कर सकते हैं, बट अदरवाइज ये 2000 करोड़ अगर आप डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन कंपनी को मदद करें to create the plug and play and give that plug and play to the charge point operator, that will help the sector much better than instead of spending the money and creating the number कि हमने 60,000 पेट्रोल स्टेशन पे चार्जिंग पॉइंट खड़ा कर दिया है. Yes, number would look like very impressive, but it is not going to help with the real ground. So regulatory framework को चेंज करना बहुत जरूरी है, उसको रिविजिट करना बहुत जरूरी है. So उसमें ओपन एक्सेस की बात करेंगे आप. ओपन एक्सेस आपने अलाउ कर दिया 100 किलोवाट का, बट एक चार्ज पॉइंट ऑपरेटर, पब्लिक चार्ज पॉइंट ऑपरेटर कैसे शेड्यूलिंग कर सकता है 15 मिनट्स पे टाइम अहेड. 24 घंटे पहले हमें 15 मिनट्स के ब्लॉक में 96 ब्लॉक्स देने होते हैं. अगर हम उसको फुलफिल नहीं करेंगे कि इस मोमेंट में कितना डिमांड आया, अंडर द डिविएशन सेटलमेंट मैकेनिज्म, द DSM, देयर इज अ ह्यूज पेनल्टी. हाउ कैन वी प्रेडिक्ट कि कल आपकी गाड़ी चार्ज वहां होगी कि नहीं होगी? हमें नहीं मालूम. कैप्टिव में हो सकती है, बस चार्जिंग में हो सकती है, पब्लिक चार्जिंग में नहीं हो सकती है. सो इफ यू आर अलाउइंग फॉर अ पब्लिक चार्जिंग, आप उसको ग्रीन करो तो कैसे होगा? आपको एनेबल करना पड़ेगा. आपको प्रॉब्लम अगर शेड्यूलिंग हटानी पड़ेगी उसके लिए पब्लिक चार्जिंग, बिकॉज दैट्स नॉट रेलिवेंट फॉर देयर. तो ये आपको जब तक रिविजिट नहीं करेंगे ईवी के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से. नाउ अनदर वेरी फैंसी टर्म्स एवरीवेयर वी टॉक अबाउट इज द TOD, टाइम ऑफ द डे. नाउ हाउ मेनी द रेगुलेटर्स हैव डन दिस स्टडी कि ईवी में टाइम ऑफ द डे, पब्लिक चार्जिंग में टाइम ऑफ द डे करने से फायदा होगा कि नहीं होगा? टाइम ऑफ द डे आज की डेट में हमारी मोस्ट ऑफ द स्टेट्स में, एक्सेप्ट प्रोबब्ली फॉर तमिलनाडु, मोस्ट ऑफ द स्टेट्स में टाइम ऑफ द डे में ऑफ पीक आपका ड्यूरिंग द नाइट होता है, 10 बजे से 6 बजे सुबह. ना आप इस हॉल में जितने भी लोग हैं, आप ये बताएं कि रात में 10 बजे से 6 बजे कौन जाएगा पब्लिक चार्जिंग पे चार्जिंग करने के लिए? वहां पे अगर आपने 20% प्राइस कम कर दिया, हाउ इट इज गोइंग टू हेल्प? Now these are the things जो प्रैक्टिकल है, उसको आप लें. क्योंकि आपने TOD रखा हुआ है डोमेस्टिक कंज्यूमर के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से कि आप शाम को 6 से 9 मत करो, आप रात में 10 बजे कर लो. आपको वॉशिंग मशीन 6 बजे आने की जरूरत नहीं है, रात में 10 बजे चला दो, ऑटोमेटिक चला जाएगा बोर्ड पे. Because that point of time load is less. So these are the practical aspects of the electricity regulatory framework which requires to be revisited. And that's the message I would, through this forum, I would say that if we can convey to the regulators, if we can have a communications with the forum of regulators. Unfortunately, forum of regulators CPO से बात ही नहीं किया आज तक 7 सालों में. Who they talk to? They talk to distribution companies. Please remember, distribution company, many of the distribution company has a conflict of interest. They are a CPO themselves. अगर वो खुद CPO है, it means, और उनको आपने नोडल एजेंसी बना दिया है प्राइवेट CPOs को रेगुलेट करने के लिए, तो वो डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन कंपनीज भी है, वो CPOs भी है और वो नोडल ऑफिसर भी है. तो वो कभी भी अपनी प्रॉब्लम बताएगा रेगुलेटर्स को, बिकॉज दे आर वर्किंग अंडर द रेगुलेटर. सो रेगुलेटर हैज टू टॉक टू द CPOs एज वेल. तब जाके ये सब चीजें सरफेस पे आएंगी, फिर ये ओवर द पीरियड रिजॉल्व होगा. बिकॉज इसको रिजॉल्व होने में 6 महीने में नहीं होने वाला, ये 2 से 3 साल लगेंगे. फॉर्चुनेटली वी हैव एनफ चार्जिंग पॉइंट्स व्हिच कैन सस्टेन. आप अगले 5 साल तक गाड़ियां बेचते रहो धनाधन, तब भी इतनी चार्जिंग पॉइंट्स हैं और जो लग रही हैं वो सफिशिएंट होंगी, कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं होगी. बट जिस रफ्तार से आप डेवलप करना चाहेंगे, फॉरगेट अबाउट द हाईवेज. हाईवे चार्जिंग तो आपकी डेवलप हो ही नहीं पाएगी एट अ फास्टर स्पेस अनलेस यू टेक केयर ऑफ द रूरल फीडर. 6 घंटे की बिजली आती है. मैं यहां से जयपुर जाता हूं, वहां पे हमारे चार्जर्स लगे हुए हैं बहुत सारे ढाबाज पे. 6 घंटे की बिजली आती है. बस ऑपरेटर वहां कैसे चार्ज करेगा? How would you do address these practical aspects? वहां पैसा लगाए आप उन चीजों के इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर में, instead of creating these charging points through the PSUs. Thank you.
So actually, I was listening and taking the note. It's a full 1-page task for us. Maybe if Philin and Gurucharan is there, so I just let's try to take an appointment with Forum of Regulators. So just to tell you our experience, to take an appointment to present about energy storage, it took 1.5 years to take an appointment. They delay their meetings just to convince them this is most important thing. Please put in an agenda. We will come. maybe we will try it, and not only for forum of regulators, with DISCOMs and other perspective, we have taken a note, we'll work on it. And not taking much time, I want to invite Mr. Sirius Khanna, the CFO, Exicom, and as the largest manufacturer, how they see this industry is growing.
Interesting insights that these two panelists have shared, and I think this is the right forum where this information, this input, this should be taken up with the regulators. I wasn't aware that it takes a year and a half to actually get an appointment. It just goes to show that how much of a two-way interaction we have between the people who are here on the ground trying to roll out the network, the infrastructure of EV charging, and the regulators. But nevertheless, I think there are always areas of improvement, and that's where the government will continue to do so. My next 5-7 minutes is just 3 slides. I'm sure all of you have gone through the Prime Minister eDrive schemes, something on the MOP, but what I could in about 5-7 minutes take out the gist of what has been the highlight of these is what I was wanting to share with you. The total outlay, so the scheme, hopefully if it does get rolled out, will be for about 18 months, starting from 1st of October to 21st of October 24 to 31st of March 26. A total outlay of about 10,900 crores has been looked at, supporting the 2.9 million EV vehicles that are being targeted. Interesting is, apart from the two-wheeler, three-wheeler and the four-wheeler that we're doing, ambulances has been included. I know whether you're aware, there are about 30,000 ambulances across the country today, and they're looking at moving, they've earmarked 500 crores for this, and looking at how we can improve the medical support through ambulances. This is a good, interesting move. US has just come out with a very high-tech ambulance to support people while they're being ferried away from the place where they've been picked up to the hospital. And of course, for the first time, they're also looking at the trucks, and there's been some money spent earmarked for e-trucks as well. Unfortunately, as an indication, you don't see too much happening on the four-wheeler passenger commercial vehicles. Not much support is coming out there. On the e-buses, I think the government is pushing to its goal of decarbonizing the public transport. So about 4,400 crores has been earmarked, setting up 14,000 electric buses. So basically all the states are moving to e-buses, which is healthy, the decarbonizing, reducing the pollution. That's a positive. And they're also looking at how the fund movement of this 4,400 crores could be moved through a central agency rather than the STUs to facilitate faster and quicker deployment of this investment. So potential installed distributor charges will help. So if you have e-buses coming in big way, I think the intra-city, intra-state, long highways within the state need to be equipped with very fast chargers. We have now come up with about 400 kilowatt chargers, which actually can charge a bus in about 20-25 minutes to go through on the highway. It wouldn't be a full top-up, but at least can take you through if a top-up is required. Another 2,000 crore, which Abdesh just mentioned about, is allocated towards the infrastructure. And while you were saying, yes, we need to improve the infrastructure in rural areas, the basic supply of electricity that needs to happen. There's no point putting up chargers if there's no electricity. So of course, that is the area that needs improvement. But about 72,000 charging stations have been earmarked for that kind of investment of 2,000 crores. A majority of it, 80% of it, will go for two-wheelers and three-wheelers. But there is funds for fast charging. 22,000 fast charging is being looked at, and 1,800 fast charger for e-buses. I think one other important point that he mentioned is we have to look at the quality of the chargers. When these chargers are talked about, 60 120 kilowatts, 180. They're very high powered chargers. And if the quality is not good, there will be accidents and there will be cases which we need to be aware of. I think the kind of importance that some of the good manufacturers are putting in and the kind of money they've put in is for safety and security of people who are using the chargers. Some of these cheaper chargers, we'll only know in time how dangerous they can be. Moving on to MOB, some of the quick things that I want to just share on this is that the EV charging infrastructure is basically to now look at how we can increase the ecosystem of chargers across and how quickly we can deploy this. There are tariffs, single part tariffs extended till 2028. So this is going to be subsidizing and creating a win-win situation for the charge point operators and for the customers. Regional charge point operators have started coming in. So while we have national charge point operators, we have regional ones as well. Down south, in particular regions, we've seen people mushrooming, trying to create an infrastructure out there. The other important thing is the dense network. And for any successful rollout of electric vehicle ecosystem, I think the more density that we have of chargers. He did mention that at the moment, there are quite a few chargers already there. So it's not that, and they are all going begging, given that their utilization is only on an average of 5, 6, or maybe 10%. But in a chicken and egg story, the chicken has already arrived, I guess. The chargers are there on the road, and they are growing. And with this government's intent of now having a charger within 1 kilometer distance from the current 3 into 3 kilometers by 2030 is a positive direction. Every 20 kilometers on a highway will have a charger and a long fast charger on an every 100 kilometers. This is very good. The other thing that has helped is the community charging, where RWAs, high rises, they have been earlier sourcing chargers from or having charge point operators deploy those chargers. They have now got access to buying capex, deploying those chargers and charging at a reasonable rate for the residents and the visitors that come into RWA. So that's a positive sign. I think on the EV infrastructure, the pushing up of slab of 150 kilowatt from the earlier 50 to 100 is a positive. It did involve a lot of capex to put in a charger with the transfer and stuff that was there. And fast charging norms with a minimum of 240 kilowatt chargers, that's also good. And so there are things that are now getting defined. And what is going to be helpful is that with the increased demand of distributed chargers, high power chargers and CPOs will actually gain on this and not be just there. A quick summary, I think there are a few things that are on technology that I want to mention. New technology like pantograph charging and induction charging will find a mention in this policy. These are something which are advanced ways of charging. They've been used successfully overseas, and this will come into India, which are space effective and speed effective in terms of charging. Residential societies I just mentioned can decide on rates and to what they have to charge to the residents and visitors. This is a plus that we see. All chargers have been classified into power levels now. So there are 4 levels, 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is where they fit in. Vehicle to grid integration is now announced. I think that's something interesting. Discoms will set up tariffs for V2G models. This is the only for fleet at the moment. But bidirectional technology will see some prominence now. This is basically between the grid. You can charge from renewable resources. And this is something which is very interesting that is going to be coming up. This is being deployed in Australia as of now, where they're looking at bidimensional. And there are multiple ways of, so they need not necessarily be integrated with the grid. There are renewable resources that create the power, and you can charge your vehicle through that integrated chargers. charging stations can operate as solar carports. This is both on-grid and off-grid. This is also going to be something new on technology that is going to be coming up. And any station which is more than 10 EVs will, like a petrol pump, have all the hygiene of a washroom, a water, and facilities to take rest in the. So I think there are steps that are being taken, but I think the testimony of successful EV rollout would be when the first car at home is an EV and not a car which is run by fossil fuel. The testimony of success would be when there would be rural areas who would be having a lot of EVs. I think that is an untapped area at the moment, and rightly so, because the supply of electricity and uptime of power is not there as much. So the moment we get that infra in place, we upgrade our transformers, we upgrade our grids, we will see how the growth of EV will not only be restricted to the urban areas but the rural areas as well. Thank you so much.
They have a good kickstart session to brainstorm on various aspects over the 4 sessions planned today on different topics. And thanks to all the speakers, I request Neetu to give the token of appreciation to Binayak. Give it all of you. Okay, let's.
With each year, we see that as OEMs, there are new products which are offered in the market, and each product bringing a new technology. And thanks to the evolving technology also in battery and in the entire connected vehicle space, we are seeing that the vehicles which are getting offered in the market are with higher battery, which eventually helps in longer range. And thus it also in one way leads to the requirement of different type of charging speeds as well. We are seeing that how this new generation of vehicles, they can take up fast currents, they need fast charging, and plus there's also a very rapid evolution in the charging technology as well. So with the charging speeds and with the battery capacity, there has been, we are seeing market now, if you see even in the public charging infrastructure in India, you can see the capacity starting from 30 kilowatt to 120, now 240 as well, and depending upon the different car segments also. So starting from premium, mass premium, luxury segments also, there are different cars, and each car with their charging capacity can handle different kind of charging speeds as well. So, and yes, home charging and public charging both are, as I would say, for EVs charging, because it is a critical component. So home chargers and public chargers and their speeds matter a lot. And this is how we are also seeing the trends in the Indian market as well. So yes, with the growing technology, we see how transition is happening in the market, and with more range, more advanced battery, more advanced battery chemistries, the range is getting extended, and thus how the charging infrastructure also need to support the same.
Taking what Neha has said, see, going forward, we don't envisage that a public charging station should necessarily have a low capacity chargers, because if the battery capacity is increased, it means you have a longer range. And if you have a longer range, it means you have a lesser frequent requirement of the charging on your route. But wherever you will stop, you would like to have a quick charging. Because if your battery is going now from average 30 to 40 or 50, or for that the new variants of the vehicles coming with a 70, 80 kilowatt hour battery, you are not required to spend, you would not like to spend 1 hour again. You would like to spend same half an hour, 20 minutes for that 80 kilowatt power to be pumped in. So it means that subject to the OEM supporting 1C or 2C or 3C, That's the call which the OEM has to take. Because this is one of the, again, fundamental myth I would like to clarify is that it is not necessarily the charge point operator or the charger which is the bottleneck for the charging speed. Many a times, or rather, first level of the regulations comes from the OEM because it's the BMS that decides that at what rate the battery would be allowed to be charged. Right? So even if you, let's say, put up, like we have put up a 200 kilowatt charger. Now if a Nexon comes, it doesn't draw 200 kilowatt power, but the charger is there for 200 kilowatt, right? Now, if another vehicle comes, let's say BMW comes, it requires 100 kilowatt. So this 200 kilowatt again give that power. In that case, if I have a 60 kilowatt chargers, then it can say that yes, the charger is the bottleneck. So primarily it's the OEM which is to decide. But generally the trend, as Neha said, that it is going towards the higher capacity of the battery because customer psychologically wants a longer range, right? Now, if that longer range has to be serviced by the high capacity battery, then they require a fast charging. So we believe that the public charging gradually has to move from this 30, 60 to 120, 150 plus. So that's the major thing has to happen, and accordingly the infrastructure has to support that.
Fast, maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes is also possible. But as it has been rightly pointed out, we need to have the battery management system proper so that that can allow that kind of charging. And secondly, for fast charging, we need more advanced charging infrastructure. Like in the previous session, there was a point made by Mr. Shiraj, Exicom. So, like we should have induction charging, or we should have pantographs. So that is what we need to add in the charging infrastructure. Not only talking about the low power chargers, but we should talk about the high power chargers because in Toshiba we believe that chargers can be itself as a range extender. If you have more chargers, you can extend the range, and you can utilize your vehicle, your battery in a vehicle very well. So that is the point I would like to make.
Mr. Brown, I repeat your question. I think you're asking about the global OEM behavior around this space. So I'm not talking about Schneider because that's not on the OEM space. But yes, today the majority of the work is happening in this space in Europe, US, and China. So I'm not talking about China. I'm just focusing on Europe and North America right now, and I'll talk what's happening there. So government is coming out with real policies, like one of the big policy change which happened somewhere in the May this year, which was net zero policy, which forces that by 2030, 45% of the rollout vehicles of those OEMs, the trucks and the buses, needs to be electric. They have to achieve that 45% net zero goals. Otherwise, they will have to pay severe penalties, and the penalties are per kilometer, per gram of CO2 emitted by those vehicles. So they have no other choice to come with electric trucks and electric buses. I'm talking about the big vehicles, I'm not talking about the car as such right now. This is parallelly also having another policy called as AFIR, which is a policy which says that every 60 kilometers you need to have a high-speed car charging station on a highway or a freeway, and 120 kilometers you need to have a very, very high-power charging, which is now getting shaped up in a standard called as MCS, megawatt charging system, for every 120 kilometers. So if you see the amount of freeways and highways in Europe, it's a very good catalyst to kind of push the EVs in the space of it's across Europe. Same thing is happening in America. A lot of government funded projects, DOE is funding a lot of projects, and one of them is Super Truck, for example, which is forcing all the OEMs to come with next level Super Truck trucks program. Proud to say that we are also associated with one of them. Can't share much of the details right now, but yes, we have started working on that megawatt charging space with one of the Super Truck program. But that's a very good catalyst program with several $1 billion funding in that, pushing the OEMs to bring out the electric trucks and buses and electrification of the fleet. Now, that's mostly on the truck side, but it's not stopping on the just trucks and buses. It's happening in the other spaces, which is very, very severe, which is mining, for example. Almost all the big companies mining trucks are now becoming electric. Very difficult to think of, but I think Caterpillar and a few more have already rolled out their trucks. And MCS level 3 is also getting shaped according to that. So it's approximately one charging gun of almost 4 megawatt. That's what they're talking about. And airports, all the fleets are getting electrified, ports, so all the vehicles around the space with the policies are now getting shaped towards electrification. So that's happening in this space. And as I said about the standards, obviously MCS Sharon is doing a good job by shaping both CCS and MCS and to support this global electrification of the OEMs. That's what I see as a trend in the OEM space.
The previous speaker. Let's have a big round of applause for them. Let's charge up this session. So first of all, we talked about global charging landscape. So I would categorize a complete global charging landscape in 4 zones. One is North America and Canada. So charging infrastructure is being pushed by government, and in US there is a Navy funding. So government is pushing charging infrastructure on the highway to facilitate EV owners. Second comes Europe, and primarily it is dominated by Germany, Norway, and Netherlands. And these countries, they also have government push and sensibility on putting EV net infrastructure. Complete Trans-Europe network is being developed. So the EV owners are having, perennial that thought, if I come out on the road, how quickly I can charge my car and get again back on the road. So this is the question everywhere. Coming to Asia Pacific, of course China is leading overall EV penetration. India is on the early stage. We started a decade back, but last 5-6 years, we had got a very good traction. In India, of course, there's a government push, public partnership is there, and the product manufacturer like us, we're trying to build technology, we're trying to innovate new technology and bringing better product in the Indian market. So continuously we are focusing to bring better product. And then there is a next set of countries like Latin America, Africa, where the earliest startup is there. But in whole charging infrastructure, so far we have spoken about accessibility, availability of charger. This is just first stage of whole charger ecosystem for the future. The efficiency part we are not talking. In none of the government tender we are stressing on efficiency part. Then safety part is absolutely missing in India in discussion. And I think Avdeshji was saying this point. Safety is one of the critical aspects. If you go to Europe, US, we talked about safety. Similarly, sustainability. We are into business of sustainable energy transition. So while building the charger, we focus on all these aspects. Of course, efficiency is one parameter, safety, sustainability. So our chargers can be integrated with all kind of renewable energy. So we'll talk about technology maybe next time. So global landscape, there is a difference between US, Europe, and the countries like India. So this is a brief about global landscape and talking about safety and everything. But we'll talk about technology maybe next time.
I think major insights have been shared with the previous speakers, and this is the topic of fast charging infrastructure. So I would like to put my different view. If you will see in India, the battery capacity of the four-wheeler is 25 kilowatt to 45 kilowatt or 50 kilowatt, and 240 kilowatt charger is readily available in India. And major charger OEM or manufacturer is providing the 240 kilowatt charger. But the bottleneck is the car capacity or battery capacity to observing that charge. The 240 kilowatt charger is the quite fast charger for a car. We have to focus on the charging capacity of the battery. Rather than focusing on the charger itself, we have to see both the views of the coins. Now comes at the buses and trucks. 240 kilowatt charger is the fast charger for the buses and trucks? No. With a battery capacity of 360 kilowatt, 240 kilowatt chargers take around 2 hours to get it full charge. Now, as a CPO or as a experience and in the high capacity charger and buses and all, I would like share to some practical problems we are facing in the fast charger basically. First major problem is the high operating temperature. The operating temperature of the charger is in the tune of 50 to 55 degrees centigrade. But if you will see the conditions of the in India, basically the Delhi, there are the extreme weather conditions. You have been here the news of in peak summer temperature have been touched 55 degrees centigrade and all, and at that time charger start derated, and at that time most of the chargers, we have the chargers of multiple OEMs, and most of the chargers were operating at 70 to 80%, even 60% of its rated capacity. I think I will urge to the charger OEM to have a focus on that point also, because at such a ambient temperature, force cooling somehow will not suffice the purpose. We have to focus on the liquid cool chargers and all. Second point is the efficiency. If you will see, the efficiency of the charger is around 95 to 96%. In case of 240 kilowatt charger, if you will calculate at the rate of 96%, there are 10 kilowatt losses in the charger. 10 kilowatt losses per hour, it is a very huge, and all the losses are converting into the heat only, and that heat will increasing the temperature of the charger, and that ultimately impacting the efficiency or operating range of that charger. If we will focus on the efficiency improvement of the charger, then ultimately the heat loss will be less, and the cooling, the capacity you are providing for the cooling will also be less. Third point is basically on the temperature of the connector. If you will see, in case of 240 kilowatt charger and if bus is operating at the 700 volt, the current is in the tune of around 170 ampere. At 170 ampere continuous operations for 4-5 hours or 6-7 hours, the heating at the connections points, the temperature of the connection points exceed the limit of 80-90, and that is the major problem. The charger becomes cut off, and it takes you can say minutes to 10 to 15 minutes to cool down the that contact point and all. So these are the practical problems we are facing. Not we only, all the CPO would have been facing, I hope. So there is a need to address these problems.
And thank you for sharing the perspective. In terms of e-mobility, when we speak about e-mobility, and references came up to China, North America, but very interesting bit of trivia. I don't know how many of us are really aware that India has the second largest global market for electric two-wheelers and the largest market for electric three-wheelers in the world. So because India has a very different need set of vehicles, which is why we are in particular categories. And now taking that data point in perspective, and I want to take Mr. Avdeja's opinion on this, sir. Sir, of late we are seeing some two-wheeler makers trying to integrate into the CCS charging system. So what is your view on, I mean, it's a very good installed base of customers. It's the second largest market in the world. So how do you feel this trend will develop? Because you already have a AC charging standard, you have a combined AC-DC charging standard, and now you have some companies who are adopting a CCS2 standard in the two-wheeler space. What is your view on this?
As a CPO, we would be more than happy because this will increase the utilization of our assets, right? And having navigated these discussions around the standardization, because in the four-wheeler, all the industry players, they themselves volunteered that we will adopt the CCS2. Right? Unfortunately, in the two-wheelers, the game of that one-upmanship, that is prevailing, and that's where you have a fragmented connectors in the two-wheeler segment, and that has
kept the CPOs away from entering into that zone. Normally, you will find the two-wheeler charging infrastructure is owned by the manufacturer itself. Because as a CPO, how many connectors we will servicing at a public charging station. So we strongly believe that this is something which is very favorable. But then another aspect is that since CCS is already a standard, it's everything around that CCS is well established across the world. And this has the potential of giving the quick charging capability to the two-wheelers also. Because currently on the OBC side, onboard the chargers and the two-wheelers doesn't have the capacity to go 2 kilowatt or 3 kilowatt on the onboarder. But on the fast charging, why it should take 1 hour? If it has a 2 kilowatt battery or 3 kilowatt battery, why can't it be charged in 20 minutes? And that's where I believe the CCS has the potential to benefit and it will be good. And I believe that initially the motorcycle manufacturers probably would start with the CCS.
Explain through a presentation what Schneider does. So we'll take
A big round of applause for honors esteemed speakers, please. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.